Well, it doesn't qualify as a theory. We should put quotes on the word theory. It's a so-called theory. Some people are calling it a pseudoscience or junk science, psychobabble. What's wrong with it? Not testable. What's the first criterion? Deductive. Is the theory deductive? Yes. How does the deduction work? Well, Johnny loves his mother in an acceptable way. How do we explain that with psychoanalysis? Well, he wants to have sex with her because he has an Oedipal. Johnny is a boy. All boys have an Oedipal complex. Therefore, he wants to kill his father and marry his mother. But he has sublimated it into a socially acceptable form. And therefore, he loves her in an acceptable way. That's why he sends her Valentine on Valentine's Day, "Dear Mom, I love you." Right? Because he has an Oedipal complex. Joey hates his mother. Is he deductive? Yes. Joey is a male. All males have an Oedipal complex. He wants to kill his father and marry his mother. He has reaction formation. What's reaction formation? That's where this socially unacceptable idea causes him to overtly have the opposite. He thinks he hates his mother in order to hide the fact that he really wants to have sex with her. So that's why he hates his mother. Well, it's deductive, but is it meaningful? Well, what do we mean by meaningful? It means it's not meaningless. What does it mean to be meaningful? It means testable. If it's a logical contradiction, if it's logically impossible to ever test a statement, then the statement is meaningless. For example, does this pen have a mind? I might say, yes, it does. You know what it's thinking? It's thinking, why do you keep taking off my clothes and rubbing my private parts on the wall? It doesn't have too much advanced thinking, but it's worrying about that. How do I know what it's thinking? I thought about it for a while, and I thought if I was a pen, that's probably what I'd be thinking. So therefore, that's what the pen is thinking. Am I actually saying anything? Now you can it kind of has a poetic feeling. Oh, we don't want to hurt the pen's feelings. We better put this one aside, take another pen that doesn't have a mind, and do it with that pen. How do I know which pen has a mind, which ones do or don't have minds? There's no way to check it, is there? There's no way to know what's in this pen's mind. You can't know what's in somebody else's mind. But even worse than that, according to Freud, we're going to talk about what's in the subconscious mind. So this pen has a mind, but it isn't even aware of the subconscious mind. It wants to be written on the board in its subconscious mind. What does it mean if I say all this stuff? Am I actually saying anything that is testable? Well, how would you test any of these statements that all boys have an Oedipal complex? So if the boy loves his mother, if he's indifferent to his mother and loves somebody else, if he actually kills his father, or if he doesn't kill his father, it's all due to an Oedipal complex. If he beats up on his brother, well, that's really that's displacement. He really wanted to kill his father, but he's beating up on his brother. There is no way to test it, and if there's no way to test it, then it's meaningless. And so that's the main, same as the theory of unverifiable brownies. That's why it's called a pseudoscience. That's why you really have trouble. There used to be a couple of Freudians at universities still about 20 years ago. I don't know if you can find any in American universities anymore. They were always rare in American universities. There were very few, and we'll be explaining why there were so few in American universities. On the other hand, American culture, pop culture, magazine articles, Cosmo magazine, the newspapers, the movies, the soap operas, the books that were written, literary criticism, common speech, political dialogue, Freudian terminology and Freudian language gets used in the media like astrology. Just like astrology gets used and is part of our culture. The third idea is prediction. And fourth is causation, and we'll be talking about them today. And the fifth is generality. These are the 5 criteria for a theory. If it doesn't satisfy meaningfulness, is not going to satisfy 3 and 4, and certainly not number 5. So if it doesn't make it past meaningful, it satisfies deduction, but it does not satisfy meaningfulness. How would we test the statements? Well, what do we mean by meaning? It's wrapped up in how you test it. I'm sure you were able to understand how to test these statements, and hopefully you know how to test these kinds of statements. More than half of the males in this room are taller than 6 feet. How would we test it?
Measure all the males.
Measure all the males. How do we measure them? We could have them stand against the wall. We could make a mark on the wall. We could measure it with a ruler, right? And if it's greater than 6 feet, we'll say greater than 6 feet. How many people in this room are taller than 6 feet, males? 1. More than half the males. How many males are there in this room? Right, so we've got quite a few males, right? 1 is less than half, so is it true or false?
False.
It's a posteriori false, based on observations. We've just tested it, and we found that it's false. It's an empirical statement, and it's a simple fact. We're going to be dealing with more complicated kind of statements, generalizations, like if I drop this, it falls. Those are the things you have to use induction to check. Okay, more than half of the people who are taller than 6 feet are male. All the people, males and females, taller than 6 feet. How many of them are there? 100% of the people who are taller than 6 feet are male. Right? I'm assuming you're male.
Yes.
He says he's male. We're going to believe it, right? Dressed like a male. Says he's a male. Looks like a male. We're not going to do any other tests. There are other tests that can be done. You can take Psych 312 if you're interested in those. They don't actually check everybody in there, though. All right. More than half the people who are taller than 6 feet are male. Is that true or false? More than half of the people in this room who are taller than 6 feet are male.
True.
More than half. 100% is more than half, right? Because all the people taller than 6 feet were male in this case. All males in this room are taller than 6 feet. Is that true or false? False. How do you test it? Do you need to test the males? And do you need to test the people who are not taller than 6 feet? Are there some males not taller than 6 feet in here? Yes, there are. Okay? So we know that this is false. A posteriori false. All persons taller than 6 feet are male.
True.
That one's true. Okay? So, we just checked those four. You understand how to test those now, don't you? Okay, we had a little trouble with statements like these before. All males have an Oedipal complex. How do we test that? Is that saying anything empirical?
No.
If you could check it, you would understand what it means, if it has meaning. But if you don't understand how to test it, then you don't understand what it means. And if it can't be tested, then it's empirically meaningless. So this one, there's nothing to do, no way to test. And so it's not saying, it doesn't have any empirical meaning. Everyone who is weaned was traumatized. Well, what does trauma do to a child? Well, everybody was weaned. Is there anybody in here who wasn't weaned? So everybody's weaned. And now how do we know if they've been traumatized? Well, they could have been traumatized and have recovered, right? So they healed. Or they could be a smoker or a gum chewer, or they could, be a big talker, or they could be a stutterer. So what we wait till happen, we wait until after we see what happens. If there's a smoker, a pipe smoker, or a cigar smoker, or a gum chewer, we would say what? They were fixated at the oral stage of development. Obviously they had some problem when they were weaned. It must be their mother's fault that they're a gum chewer or a smoker or a stutterer. It must be something that happened to them when they were young. So this one right here, these are two statements from Freud that we don't really know how to test. So let me just get an idea. How many got these right in here. You understood how to test them. Most of the hands look like. How about most people got that these things are untestable? Problem with Freud is it's not testable. All right. Any questions about the quiz or the assignment before it gets erased? Okay.